Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, my friends, let's start our Sutta study session, Mindfulness in this way. So I'm going to share the screen. Okay, my friends, today's topic is about our next hindrance. So we were discussing about the mental hindrances, which prevents our mental training, which prevents our mindfulness. So today we have to study about restlessness and worry. Sometimes worry translate as regret or sometimes as remorse. So it is easy to understand for us when we use the worry, so restlessness and worry. In Buddhist language, it is called Uddacha Kukucha. Okay? Restlessness and worry as a hindrance to the mindfulness. Now, restlessness or Uddacha refers to a disturbed or agitated state of mind where thoughts are scattered and unsettled. So this is the experience. While when our mind is possessed with restlessness, our mind is so much disturbed and agitated and not very settled or scattered. So the next one is the worry, kukucha, is often linked with restlessness and is a part of the combined hindrance called Uddacha Kukucha. Okay, these two are goes together. Now, if you remember, in our previous sessions, we studied about restlessness and worry with the simile that it is just as a ball of water which is rippling, which is shaking. So when a person goes to get the reflection of their face, they can take that because in that moment the water is rippling. Now, with that simile, when we look at our mind, it is just as the same. When we are going to see our mind, when we are going to develop mindfulness, when we seek our mental clarity, if the mind is possessed with this restlessness and worry, uddacha kukucha, so that time we can't uh, see our mind correctly. We cannot see our mind clearly. So there's nothing to talk about mental development. Let's say we are going to practice our breathing. So when there is mind filled with this hindrance, so it can be so much difficult to develop concentration. So this is a hindrance for our mindfulness. Okay. Now, regret over past actions, especially unskillful ones, fuels our worry. The mind fixates on what should have been done differently, which leads to mental disturbance. Now, when we experience our worry, it is mainly because of some of the actions we did in the past. So there is a ongoing regret about our past actions, especially coming from the unskillful side of actions. Actions means our way of body, speech, or mental actions. So those, the unskillful side can bring us regret, and that fuels our worry. The mind fixates on what should have been done differently. So one think like, oh, why did I talk like that? Why I did that? I shouldn't have do like that. I had to say like this. Why did I say like that? So that is kind of a like a worry we have that is coming from our past actions, which leads to mental disturbance, which means as long as we have such a worry or regret about past actions we are not clear about, so that type of action fuels our worry. The more that we become worried about something, the more our mind becomes restless. So that's why these two things are connected together. Because of the worry, mind becomes restless. If the mind is always praising us, if the mind is always telling us, you did good thing, you talked really well, you did a good thing from your body, you helped others, and you support other people. So if there is such a skillful actions in the past, it can bring us peaceful mind. It won't bring us worry. So if mind does not bring us worry, so mind becomes so much peaceful and it will be rest. But now the opposite is that mind becomes so much regret about the actions because we don't filter out the skillful side of the action. So we usually, when we engage with actions without our control, like without our guard, so it can fuel up our worry. So the mind fixates on what should have been done differently, which leads to mental disturbance. So that is why we should not be worried about something which has happened in the past. Why? Because it can fuel up our restlessness too. We practice sila or training rules to give up the restlessness and worry. So when we train ourselves with a moral code, like kind of a skillful things, such as our precepts, if we can develop such a training rule, so we can stop the restlessness and the worry. So abandoning restlessness is a long-term practice. So we need our mindfulness towards our actions to stop brings us regret, brings us worry, which means we need to guard our actions. So that's how we can stop this worrying and regret, which later brings us peaceful mind. Sila or training rules is a foundational part of the path and plays a crucial role in overcoming restlessness and worry. Hence, antidote is the Sila, the training rules. Now, in a certain sutta, Buddha speaks about this. He says, without giving up three things, you can't give up unmindfulness, lack of situational awareness, and scattered mind. So he collected these three factors together and say these three factors to abandon them. There should be another three factors to remove that. So unmindfulness, lack of awareness, and scattered mind. These three goes together. When the mind is scattered, when the mind is here and there, we will lose our situational awareness and we will lose our mindfulness. Okay, so now to remove them, Buddha teach you need to cultivate three more things. That is, one need to practice seeing the noble ones. He say you can't abandon unmindfulness, lack of situational awareness, and scattered mind without abandoning not wanting to see the noble ones, not wanting to hear the teachings of the noble ones, and a fault-finding mind. Now, when the Buddha teach, he usually established a complete set of system that one can practice and get its results. Now, here the Buddha say, in the Buddha's teachings, in the Buddha's training, one needs to see the noble ones, which means the Buddhas and the enlightened monks, and whoever teaches the Buddha's a correct teaching, one need to associate with them. And one need to listen to the Dhamma. Teaching of the noble ones means the Dhamma. Dhamma is not something out from us, it's our own, the true reality of our own lives. So one need to listen to the Dhamma and one should not hold a fault-finding mind during the listening to the Dhamma from the noble ones. So when we practice such a training, Buddha say you can abandon lack of mindfulness, lack of situational awareness, and a scattered mind. To establish ourselves in the training rules, we need to associate with noble friends. Nowadays, we don't see Buddha in real life, but we have Buddha's teachings. So we need to associate with the teachings. Those who teach the Dhamma and show us the skillful and unskillful action according to the Dhamma. This does not mean like adapting our life to somebody else's standards, but it's mostly about the Dhamma, which means in the moral code, in the training of the Buddha, there are some actions he teach that if you do these actions, it will brings you later regret and worry. Thus, it will fuel up the restlessness. So you should abandon those unskillful actions by way of body, speech, and mind. The Dhamma reveals hidden truth about our own lives, and while listening to it, we should avoid the tendency to find faults in the teachings. In this way, as we listen, we gradually clear our doubts and it will become easier to develop mindfulness, awareness, and stillness. So these are interconnected. Observing training rules related to seeing the noble ones and listening to their teachings. We largely influenced by the people we live with. If we interact with someone who has a scattered mind, we can easily adapt to that person's mental state and lose our mindfulness. Again, Buddha say, without giving up three things, you can't give up not wanting to see the noble ones, not wanting to hear the teaching, and a fault-finding mind. So you need to give up much more three things to give up this. See here, even in this teaching, when it comes to the practice, he only shows us causes and conditions. He don't say that start doing this, start practicing this, but he say if you need the result, you need the condition. So he say if you need wanting to see the noble ones, hear the teachings, and abandon the fault-finding mind, you need much more conditions, three things. That is restlessness, lack of restraint, and unethical conduct. Now, one need to abandon restlessness, lack of restraint, and unethical conduct to see the noble ones, to listen to the teaching, and to abandon fault-finding mind. And if you practice that three, you can gain mindfulness, situational awareness, and you can abandon scattered mind, which means you can develop peaceful mind. So it is very clear that mind has a nature that it is in real life, it is restless. It is the nature of the mind. So we don't need to be much like worry if the mind is not following our breath, because it is the nature of the mind. Restlessness is a byproduct of indulging sense pleasures. So that's how we enjoy the pleasure of the senses, which means when we see something or hear something, when they are reaching to us most attractive way, so we enjoy that sense pleasure by fantasizing the thoughts. That's how we enjoy that happiness. That way, we create some certain amount of restlessness. That is the outcome. The restlessness is the outcome of the sense pleasures. Why? Because that's how we enjoy. So there is enjoyment in restlessness. But when it increases, we don't see our clarity of the mind. We can't develop our mind. We can train our mind as long as there is less restlessness. And that also goes with the lack of restraint. So our actions will be not according to ourselves. It will not be like under our control. We don't know what we are speaking. We don't know what we are doing. So it comes from the restlessness and the unethical conduct. Not sure if you remember, like in our previous sessions, we discussed that when the mind is possessed by hindrances, we can't see what is beneficial for us and what is beneficial for others. What is blameless, what is blameworthy, what is skillful, what is unskillful. That's the nature of like the mind when it's possessed with hindrances. Now, the unethical conduct means that whenever we do a action without considering its consequences, without gaining the knowledge, if after I'm doing this, will it lead to me worry? So when we don't have mindfulness, we will not be clear about that skillfulness and unskillfulness. So restlessness, lack of restraint, unethical conduct, these three goes together. And I would say that this is the nature of the life. This is the nature of the enjoyment in the sense pleasures. So it can bring us this kind of mind. As we can see, this restlessness aligns with the lack of restraint over our actions and the lack of ethical conduct. These three go together. Even though we need noble association in our lives to guide us on the right path, restlessness, lack of restraint over actions, and unethical conduct can block this. When the mind is agitated and our actions are driven by impulses rather than our knowledge, our wisdom, we lost the clarity needed to recognize and connect with the noble friends. Such behavior clouds our judgment, making it difficult to cultivate mindfulness, ethical conduct, and inner peace. Key qualities that allow us to benefit from the presence and the teachings of the noble individuals. Now, in another teaching, Buddha say, good friends, companions, and associates are the whole of the spiritual life. So everything starts from a good association with a good friend. So if we never heard about the teachings from the Buddha, we won't be able to continue our practice because there's no any other way to get that teachings on training the mind and attaining the enlightenment. So there is a big role in the association when it comes to the development in our spiritual life. Now Buddha say, Nabaje papake mitte, don't mix with bad friends. Nabaje purisa dhammi, nor with the worst of men. Bhajeta mitte kalyani, mix with the spiritual friends. Bhajeta purisuttame, and with the best of men, which means Buddhas. And again, Buddha said, Nidinamva pavattaram, yam passe vajadasinam. Regard one who sees your faults as a guide to a hidden treasure. If somebody shows you this is the unskillful side, this is the skillful side, look at that as a somebody pointing you. Look, there is a hidden treasure. If you go there, you will find that very valuable hidden treasure. So see that person as a guide that shows you hidden treasure. So usually when it comes to the treasures, so let's say we find money, or let's say we find gems or pearls or golden, they can't do anything about our mental peace. But if we see this difference, this is the skillful things, these are the unskillful things, we can live so much peacefully without worry. Nigayavading medaving, stay close to one so wise and astute. Tadisam panditam bhaje, who corrects you when you need it. Tadisam bhajamanas, sticking close to such an impartial person. Say your heart in a papio, things get better, not worse. Once we adapt the training rules, we can experience a peaceful mind without restlessness. We will achieve a lasting sense of tranquility in our minds, but there should be an association with noble ones to help perpetuate these training rules. Now, I'm going to share with you another teaching. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Varanasi in the deer park at Isipatana. There, the Buddha addressed the mendicants. He is going to teach a teaching about his life to the monks, to the practitioners. Venerable sir, they replied, the Buddha said this. Once upon a time, there was a king named Pachetana. Then King Pachetana addressed his chariot maker. Chariot maker means the person who create the carts, and most like a carpenter, he fixed the wheels, and he fixed the the seat and all these stuffs in the chariot. So they usually go to the war with these vehicles. Now the king Pachetana addressed his chariot maker and said to him, in 6 months' time, my good chariot maker, there will be a battle. Are you able to make me a new pair of wheels? I can, your majesty, replied the chariot maker. Then when it was 6 days, less than 6 months later, the chariot maker had finished just a single wheel. He took like 5 months and 24 days to create only a one wheel. But the king asking for pair of wheels. Then the king Pachetana addressed his chariot maker, in 6 days' time there will be a battle. Is my new pair of wheels finished? Your majesty, I have finished one wheel. So then the king said, are you able to finish the second wheel in these 6 days? Is it enough for you just within 6 days to finish the second wheel? Because you took like more than 5 months to create one wheel. Then the chariot maker said, saying, yes, I can, your majesty. I can create that. The chariot maker finished the second wheel in 6 days. Taking the pair of wheels, he went up to the king Pachetana and said to him, your majesty, these are your two new wheels, finished. Now the king already know that he took like 5 months for one and 6 days for the other one. But my good chariot maker, what is the difference between the wheels that was finished in 6 days, less than 6 months, and the wheel finished in just 6 days? I can't see any difference between them. They all look so identical. They all look so same. They all look so similar. I don't see any difference. But, Your Majesty, there is a difference. Chariot makes it, there is a difference, though that they look so same. See now what it is. Then the chariot maker rolled for the wheel that had been finished in 6 days. He took first, the wheel took only 6 days to finish. It rolled as far as the original impetus took it, and then wobbled and fell down. Then he rolled for the wheel that had been finished in 6 days, less than 6 months. It rolled as far as the original impetus took it, then stood still as it fixed to an axle. So the one took 6 days fell down when it rolled. The second one, it went as far as it can go and then stood still. It didn't fall down. It was like fixed in an axle. But what is the cause, my good chariot maker? What is the reason why the wheel that was finished in 6 days wobbled and fell, while the one that was finished in 6 days, less than 6 months, stood still as if fixed to an axle? What's why it happened? The wheel that was finished in 6 days, Your Majesty, is crude, flawed, and defective in its rim, its spoke, and its hub. That's why it wobbled and fell. The reason why that wheel which finished in 6 days fallen down is because its rim, spoke, and hub are not fine. They are not well worked on that. That wheel is not well created. That wheel is not well finished. It has some crooks. It is flawed. And it has some defects in between the rim, in between the spoke. It's kind of happened in very fastly. So the chariot maker did not take much time to finish that. He just do it very rushly and without being focused most with the quality, but mostly with the attractiveness, mostly with the to see the wheel as a wheel. That's why it wobbled and fell. It was not very good. It's crooked. It's defective. The wheel that was finished in 6 days, less than 6 months, Your Majesty, is not crooked, not flawed, and not defective in its rim, spoke, and hub. That's why it stood still as if fixed to an axle. So the chariot maker took much time, not just like the one took 6 days, but he took much time, like 5 months, to keep working on the rim, on the spoke, and on the hull. And he was being so much careful to remove the crooks, flaws, and the defectives. He was working so much harder to fine tune this wheel so that it worked really well. That's why it stood still as if fixed to an axle. Now the Buddha say, now mendicants, you might think, surely that chariot maker must have been someone else at that time. But you should not see it like that. I myself was the chariot maker at that time. He said that in a previous life when he was training to become a Buddha, we call him the Bodhisattva. He's training Buddha. He's not a Buddha yet, but he's training for that. He's completing his perfections. Now, in that time, he worked as a chariot maker. So that was his profession. Now, Buddha say, it is me in a previous life that I was really worked in these two wheels. Then I was skilled in crooks, flaws, and defects of wood. At that time, I was really intelligent with the defects in the wood, and I was very good and very intelligent carpenter. I can work on the chariots. I can create these wheels correctly. But now that I'm a perfected one, a fully awakened Buddha, now I'm not just like a chariot maker, but I'm awakened Buddha, which means I'm awakened to the nature of the life. I'm awakened to the reality of the life. I'm skilled in the crooks, flaws, and defects of actions by body, speech, and mind. He say, I have a very good understanding about the bodily actions, about the speech, verbal actions, and about the mental actions. I have such a knowledge about the actions that I'm doing and the other people are doing, which lead them to the peace of mind. I'm skilled in that crooks, flaws, and defects. The same way the wheel has rim, hub, and the spokes, our body, speech, and mind maybe have like crooks, flaws, and defects. Now Buddha say, I know that. Crooks, flaws, and defects of body, speech, and mind are the actions we conduct which later brings us restlessness and worry. We can take that crooks, flaws, and defects of our body, speech, mind as the actions that we do, which can later brings us restlessness and worry. We should investigate ourselves and know them for sure before doing it. This is the mindful living. Whatever monk or nun, Buddha say in that teaching, has not given up the crooks, flaws, and defects of body, speech, and mind, has fallen from the teaching and training, just like the wheel that was finished in 6 days. Let's say that this talks about our mind. Let's say the wheel is our mind. So mind can manifest, the mental thoughts can manifest into our body, speech, and mental actions. If we do not abandon that defects, the unskillful actions by way of body, speech, mind, our mind cannot still. It's like a wheel finished in 6 days. A monk or a nun or any other practitioner cannot go through the practice up until the awakening. Why? Because that actions itself can prevent a person from achieving enlightenment, awakening, or maybe attaining the stillness. Why? Because it's the mind which comes before our actions. As long as we work on our body, speech, and mind, we can easily bring our mind to stillness. If somebody were to ask for me, how can we meditate off the cushions? I would say that you should guard your actions. That's how you can guard your mindfulness away the cushion. Because we should also need the foundation for the mental training. And that is this sealer, this training rule. There is a teaching by an enlightened Bhante. He say, if the mind is the ocean, its coastline is the training rules. So usually the ocean does not go beyond the coastline. Same way, if we get some training rules, so we can protect our mind because it won't go away. Thus brings us restlessness and worry. Whatever monk or nun has given up the crooks, flaws, and defects of body, speech, mind is established in the teaching and training. Just like the wheel that was finished in 6 days, less than 6 months. Like the wheel that the chariot maker took so much time, dedication to make it correctly, to make it so much usefully, like removing all the defects and flaws and crooks. If a person is keep watching for their body, speech, and mental actions, they can still their mind. they can establish themselves in the teaching up until that they reach to the awakening. So that is why there is this training rules to protect us so that we can abandon the unskillful side of our life. Later, it will bring us the peaceful mind. So you should train like this. He said, you should train like this. We will give up the crooks, flaws, and defects of body, speech, and mind. That's how you should train yourself. Crooks, flaws, and defects of body, speech, mind are the actions we conduct which later brings us restlessness and worry. Here we also use the terms skillful and unskillful in that respect. But how do we know whether something is skillful or unskillful? We can determine this by reflecting before doing it. For example, if something is likely to bring us regret later, we should avoid doing that. So we won't have any regret regarding that specific action in the future. Harming living beings brings us regret or worry, while protecting living beings brings us calmness. Let's say while we are going to meditate, if we remember a time that we saved a living being, we can still the mind. But if we remember a time that we harm a living being, our mind becomes so much restless. This is why sometimes I give this technique. Sometimes I say to people, like while you are meditating, remember about something that you did, make you so much happy. Such as, let's say, in a hard time, that if I protected a living creature, living being, if I can think about that, so that can support to your mental training. So that is why we need to practice, like, in teaching, sometimes there are like chores, things that we should do for others. Sometimes like cleaning, sometimes like bringing water to the other meditators and supporting them. So these things later can brings us, these actions can brings us so much joy to the mind. So in a time that it's very difficult to meditate, you can do some work, some service for another person, and then later you can sit down and recall about that, and you can still the mind by support of that joy. I remember once my teacher taught us that during the morning time, maybe for 2 or 3 hours, he's sweeping entire monastery. It was like a village monastery. He said that when he was young, he was cleaning entire monastery. And then he looked at that cleanliness, that pureness of the place. And then he said, when I'm sit down to meditate, the meditation really gets success. Why? Because he did that chore, that activity, and that action brought him so much happiness. When you share teachings with your friends, it is a good verbal action. So when you sit down to meditate, your mind will easily develop. Your mind will easily reach to the higher stages, and thus you can develop your mindfulness. Now, harming is unskillful while protecting beings is skillful. There are maybe many actions in our way of body, speech, and mind so that we can think by doing these things, this will brings me happiness. But if I do these things, this can bring me sadness. So I should abandon unskillful things. I should cultivate skillful things. And that's why Buddha showed us 5 precepts, 8 precepts, 200 precepts. It is because these are ways, different ways that brings us peace, which brings us confidence. Mind start to tell you about the confidence. But let's say there are no such a guard for our actions. So there can be both skillful and unskillful. And the most powerful is the unskillful side. It will attack our mind, and our mind will be so much weaker so that we can't lift the mind up and put it into the breath. So even it said that we remember things that we did in our entire life, in our last moments. So if we remember those things, actions, if it is in a good way, our mind will be so much powerful. But if we remember about the unskillful sides, so our mind will be so much weaker. So that's why it is very helpful and beneficial to get a set of like training rules so that we can start to develop our meditations. Okay, friends. So thank you so much. Thank you for being with me and thank you for listening. So that's the teaching for today. We learned about restlessness and worry. So we have few minutes. You can share with me something or questions or something.
I don't know if this is a question, but I found the idea of skillful and unskillful really interesting. How um, skillful is really, it's almost like thinking good thoughts, remembering good things, and doing good deeds. And
Exactly.
unskillful is, I really found that it had a lot of clarity to it.
Mm, yeah.
Well, Pandey, my comment here is that you said we should reflect on the good deeds of the past in order to have a happy mind when we meditate. How does that
Yes.
fit into the here and now, in the present?
Um, present mean present. What do you mean by present? Is it like
Well, the
during
present,
meditation?
the past is the past. Forget about it. You know what?
No, don't forget about past. No,
Right.
there can be good things in the past. Well, Buddha doesn't say past does not exist. Where did you learn that?
Well, if he said, Buddha said, the past, you cannot change anything of the past. But now you are saying, well, let's look at the past and look at some good
No,
deeds that we did in the past.
you know
So,
what? Well, Buddha said like this. Buddha said, past is already gone.
yeah,
Future hasn't come yet.
yes,
Abandon attachment to the present moment. That's the Buddha's teaching. But sometimes I have seen, like even Buddhist circles, like people misinterpret the Buddha's teaching that they say past does not exist. If you cast off that past, yeah, how about the skillful and unskillful action? And does that mean that past does not really exist? Can't you can't you remember the past?
yeah, but you said, that you shouldn't be attached to the past. However, if I want to recall the good deeds of the past in order to have a happy mind, I'm
Yeah.
attached to that past. No?
Um, in a way of mindfulness, I don't think like if we remember about the past in mindfulness, like using mindfulness, it does not tangle us. Now we are going to think about the past without mindfulness, so it tangles us and it won't like let us go. So yeah, this is yeah. Well, it's conditioned. If we feel all the more skillful things, that past will be so much beneficial. But if we practice unskillful things, it will not be beneficial. So when people have worries about the past, it is the past where there are so much unskillful things.
Yes.
Well, I don't say that like remembering about a beautiful like situation, like time that you spend with your friends, and thinking about that is unbeneficial. I don't say that it's unskillful, but if there is like sense pleasure, it can, like, it's very sticky, Sense pressure is very like glue.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Just as a comment now, when
yes,
you started off the lecture, you said
yes,
any regrets of the past will
yes,
create worries, and so
yes,
of course that's the unskillful side. However,
yes, yes, yes.
in the beginning you said, let's not think about the past because it might give us worries and regrets. At the end, you're saying, okay, let's look at the good deeds of the past and be
Did I
happy.
say that? Oh, forget the
I
past.
do understand what you're saying, and I think it was a very good lecture. It's very, very good.
Yes,
Thank you.
forget about the past. If I said that, why did I say that? Okay, my intended me like what my intention is to like to say that um you should not okay, I'll put it like this. You should forget about the unskillful side in the
Yes,
past.
I
You
think
can
your intention.
remember the skillful side of the past. If you need to if you need to go to the past, you go to the skillful side of the past and abandon the unskillful side.
I think
And
what you're saying is to create the right condition,
yeah, right
a
conditions. If
wholesome
yeah,
condition.
exactly. Exactly. If you expand your skillful side, it naturally brings you joy, will help you to still the mind. Like, well, we started doing by that right now.
Mhm.
Let's get the training rules, and so in the future we will have so much happiness
Right.
to meditate.
When you're meditating,
Yes,
you're focusing on your breath. So what
yes,
I do is think to myself out, in, out. So I kind of keep focus. Uh,
yes.
how do you handle, and you're trying to keep your mind still without any extraneous interference by the mind. So where does thinking about the skillful side of your past, how do you bring that in without breaking focus to uh, your in and out breathing and focusing and your attention on the breath?
It is
Yeah, I had
because
the same thoughts,
the
Alan.
reason why the mind is not following the breath during the meditation is because we are continuously attacked by restlessness and worry.
Mhm.
When we think about the past, that restlessness and worry will neutralize its power and it will fade away little by little and will thus make you some space, some mindfulness to observe your breath more easily. Now, Buddha say not only restlessness and worry, but there are five more, like four more hindrances. But we learned some of them in our previous sessions. But continuously, there are some, power, like there are some strength on these mental hindrances time to time. We never know what is attacking us during our meditation, but there can be some levels of power to these hindrances. Now, that's why I say, like, when you think about the skillful thing, it can expand your mindfulness and it can naturally bring you some mindfulness to easily follow your breath. And it will help you to easily work on your mind because it's so much clear.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, you said that at the end, if you have a happy mind, you have a much clearer mind, of course,
Yeah.
Yeah.
than
This is
if
why
you
I
have
said, like,
restlessness
there
and
is no, like, do you remember that I thought, like, the there's no self involved there's no self involved in this training is because as long as there is a skillful side grow, like it's when it's grow for a higher level, it's a natural thing. Buddha say you don't need act of will to say, may my mind be still. It's a natural thing when you have a skillful side developed. It's happened naturally. It will bring you the result from that condition. Yeah, friends, this is all about doing things.
By the way,
It's
I
not
like
wishing. It's not hopping, wishing. It's doing.
I liked your expression when something attacks your mind when you meditate, you know. That's a good one.
Namo Buddhaya Bhante. Thank you so much for the.
Yamabuddha, and yes,
Uh, Bhante, I have a question on the restlessness and worry. So, worry should we consider as the worry of the past or worry of the future, or is it the combination of the both? And then, does it
it's a
cause
combination.
restlessness? Is it resulting to, I mean, the worrying results in restlessness? Are they connected?
Yes, it results in restlessness, and they are connected. And it is here I say it's not only about like past worry or future worry. It's all about like worry about our actions. Like even though there's past and future and present, it is all about doing some specific actions through our doors, body, speech, and mind. So yes, that's what brings us worry and praise and happiness. Yes. Yes.
If we progress in the Dhamma, what
Yes.
are the like aspects that we need to look for? Let's say if we are progressing well, so restlessness is going to go down, or we are
Yes.
going to be less worrisome, or how is it going to be? Like, what's the antidote? Is it just
You,
reflecting on the wholesome,
yes.
or something else? Like,
Yes. Mostly relying on the wholesome things,
okay.
and as soon as possible getting training rules
Hmm.
and study meditation. So as you go, like Buddha say, the teaching is like a very delicious, tasty uh, drink. It's like a fruit drink. I found that. He say in a sutta, the teaching is like a fruit drink, very tasty fruit drink. When you start to drink it, you feel so much happiness. While you're drinking it, you feel happiness. And after you drank that, you feel so much happiness. So the
Hmm.
same way the training. When you start to observe training rules, it brings you happiness. When you are developing meditation, it brings you happiness. And when you finish the training, it will bring you happiness. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Bhante, I mean, did the Buddha liken it to uh, waves? I think waves in the sea, restlessness and worry, or is it like I think?
Yes, yes. In not in the sea, but it was about a simile on like a water bowl filled with
Oh,
water. Like yes, yes. Yeah.
okay.
Uh,
Thank you so much,
yeah, you're
Bhante.
welcome.
Okay,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
question is, actually it's more for clarification. So we must forget the past that has or have harmful thoughts and emotions because it
Yeah.
keeps us stuck in the present, correct? Because it's
Yes.
unwholesome, okay. And attaching to those unwholesome thoughts only brings us suffering, correct?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
we tend to attach to, I'm a worrier, so sometimes I get detached and I get stuck in the past thinking about things, and I'm learning, uh, to not attach to those thoughts and emotions because it only brings us back to that time, but it also in the present, you're not actually thinking from the past. It's just pulling you back. I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, but I guess my point is attaching to those unwholesome thoughts only brings us suffering because it
Yes,
keeps us
exactly.
stuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another
Yes.
question, Bante. You had
Yes.
mentioned that it's good to associate with spiritual friends.
Yes.
But what if you have a friend that's not spiritual, doesn't follow, like they're a good person, but they don't really
Yeah.
follow any specific spiritual path, but they're compassionate, they're kind, they're a good listener, things like that. Is
Yeah.
that a good
Well,
friend?
yes, I would say choose as a good friend as the teachings like suttas, Buddha's
Mhm.
own words. You can find suttas from the books and you can find suttas from the internet, Sutta Central. Take that as your friend and start to understand the teaching because it's alive. Even the Buddha is passed away, the teaching is alive. So you can choose the teachings.
Okay, thank you, Bante.